The Alexandria sword is one of the great swords of medieval history. It's not only important because it's been shown in so many different books, but more so because of its rich and colorful history. The Sword of Alexandria, or from the Mamluk arsenal in Alexandria, Egypt, was actually made in Milan, Italy, around 1414. Now, much of the arsenal in Alexandria was taken as loot during the intermittent battles between the Christians and Muslims. In 1419, after years of relative peace, the sword was given to the Sultan of Egypt as tribute by the King of Cyprus. As wars ignited again, the sword was taken as loot by the Turks, and the collection made its way to the Military Museum in Constantinople. It was from there that the swords from the Alexandria arsenal made its way across the Atlantic when they were purchased by Darksword Dean, the founder of the Arms and Armor Department at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which officially opened in October 1912. When Darksword Dean died on December 6, 1928, he passed one of the swords to his sister, Harriet Dean. This sword is one of the last remaining swords from the arsenal at Alexandria, and in 1943, after Harriet Dean died, the sword disappeared without a trace for 75 years. Until 2018, when Christie's got a call from somebody who wanted to get rid of an estate. The person died. They left over a bunch of arms and armors. Christie's sent one of their appraisals to view the collection, and they found the Sword of Alexandria in it. This was an incredible find. It was a sword that had virtually disappeared, and it was finally brought back, and it was in Texas, out of all places, after disappearing for 70 years. So this is a sword that really has a rich history. It's what novels are about. I mean, you can literally write a novel about this sword. But even more so than that, the history aside, the importance of the Alexandria sword, is really the typology, the sword type that it belongs to. In other words, type 18C. The blade is incredibly wide, which we haven't really seen in many different designs. I mean, we have seen other swords that were broad, but the Alexandria really, we're talking about a massive blade, but with an exceptionally good balance. The sword itself, because of the way it was engineered, the way it was fought out, really was brilliant. It's a great slasher, it's a great cutter, and it does an incredible job at piercing through the armor. And this really is a testament to the development of the medieval sword. I mean, if we look at the topology, we look at Oakeshott's topology, of course we see numerous classifications. We're starting from type 10 and you go on throughout the centuries. But if we look and we break down, if we simplify this really to bare bones, we see that there are major areas where there's a major shift in the sword typology. Like, for example, if you look at type 10, so in other words, the Viking sword, you're talking about a relatively broad blade, doesn't taper much, no real tip, it's kind of rounded off. Then you're going to type 10A, so we're looking at kind of the Norman sword, which the blade's kind of thinned out, a little bit longer with a little bit of a tip. So we kind of understood that, yes, there was a shift. The armors developed between those two eras, and therefore the swords had to develop as well. Now later on, when you're looking at type 16 to type 18, so type 16, that's the typical classical view we have of the medieval knight sword. And then you have the type 18, which is the arming sword, which is much shorter, stiffer blades made to pierce through armor. And then again, you have a major shift later on with type 18 to 18C, which is the Alexandria sword, where you're going from the short arming sword to the two-handed longsword, basically, but with a very wide blade. And really it was brilliant because the balance was perfect on that sword, and it did everything. It cut and pierce through the armors, as well as break through the armor because of that excessively wide blade. And it was really a brilliant way of countering the armors of the end of the medieval era. The first time I saw the Alexandria sword was about, I would say, 35 years ago. Probably that. Yeah, that sounds about right. And even as a child, I remember, and it was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And even at that time, I just went to the glass, and I remember actually shoving my fingers on the glass and looking at the sword, and I knew that there was something special about it. But now, you know, Darksword Armory, 23 years making swords and armors, I still enjoy the Alexandria. I still think of it as one of the great swords of history. And I've always wanted to make it. I never felt ready to make the Alexandria sword because it really is something that's really special. But now, you know, I decided to do it, and we're really, really proud of this piece. We were able to maintain the proper balance, the historical balance, so that when you hold it, it feels like the authentic sword, the real piece. And I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy that people are going to be able to get a Darksword Armory piece, have it in their hand, and know what it feels like holding the original sword. And I'm really proud of that. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful piece.